We need more women and girls in powerful roles, decision-making roles, places of leadership, because of the way we think. Not that we think better, we think differently.
Welcome to Radically Loved Radio. I am your host, Rosie Acosta, yoga teacher and teacher trainer, mindfulness coach, speaker, and creative writer. I am also the founder of radicallylove.com, a website where you can go for more information about yoga, mindfulness, meditation, and lifestyle advice. On this podcast, we talk to people within our health and wellness community that are creating content through the ritualistic practice of yoga, meditation, or overall mindful living. We hope to create value in your life so that you can achieve your highest potential and live a radically loved life. To stay in touch with us, just follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Rosie Acosta and on Facebook at Radically Loved Rosie. You can sign up for our newsletter on radicallylove.com to stay up to date on future workshops, retreats, and latest podcasts. What's up, fam? How many of you out there have been enjoying the FabFitFun seasonal boxes like me? You guys all know at this point I'm obsessed because I keep posting about it. For those of you that don't know, FabFitFun is a seasonal box with full-size beauty, fitness, and lifestyle products. It's a variety box that features quality brands like Tarte, Kate Somerville, Free People, and really it's such an incredible way for you to experience different brands. Right now, my current obsession is skincare, and it's really nice for me to try different things because I always like to find new products that really serve my self-care routine. And I love that I get this full experience and I get different things every time, so it keeps me really interested. So for those of you that want to check it out, go to fabfitfun.com and use the code RADICAL, that's RADICAL, or you can go to the link on this particular podcast to go straight to fabfitfun.com so you can get $10 off your first box, making it only $39.99. Again, go to fabfitfun.com and use the code RADICAL, because why? You deserve to treat yourself. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Radically Loved Radio. I'm so excited to have Jeanette Schneider on the show today. Jeanette, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
And I was such a huge fan of your writing, and in specific, your most recent book, Lore, that you just wrote. And you speak to so many different topics in a bunch of different areas that I find so fascinating. And I think what I love the most is your openness and your desire to facilitate conversations that need to be had, especially among women, right? I can be super spiritual or I can be super nerdy. Pick your poison. Right. It's like we're like kindred spirits. So that's something that both those topics obviously are two things that I'm also passionate about. But I think one of the main things that I'd love to get your insight, and again, I know that you speak about this at length, but just the relationship that we have with our self, in specific with our own inner critic, and that relationship that can be quite insidious in our pursuit to achieve success or to cultivate relationships and so on. So I guess to clarify the question, I'm like, how do we identify the inner critic? I think most of us know how to identify it. But how do we begin to break out of those vicious cycles of engaging with that type of narrative or story?
We are our own worst critic. We are also our most important and sacred relationship. Other than your relationship, a lot of people have, a belief in something bigger or higher, their faith, their God. And I absolutely respect that and am a person of faith, but I also feel that most sacred relationships is going to be with yourself. You enter this world alone, you leave this world alone. And in the time in between, you really have to understand the difference between who you are and what you actually believe, stand for, and know about yourself, and the information that you've gathered through messaging, whether it be social, generational, or cultural. So I think that there's a deep self-awareness that really has to happen in order for you to quiet that critic and understand when you're starting to engage in negative self-talk or when you're starting to sabotage a relationship or a career. And I believe wholeheartedly in free writing. I really am an advocate of Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, and it kind of really got me started on this journey. And one of the things that I recommend people do is get clear on what they believe about themselves. And, in my book, I talk about writing a love letter to your younger self, and understanding what things as a kid you believed that may actually be carried along throughout the course of your life and showing up in relationships, at work, in other settings, and in your quiet inner critic self-talk, that little poke that you have that comes at you. There's so many different layers, right? You can talk about self-image, you can talk about what you believe about your value, but you really have to, and the letter's not a one and done type thing. You can write the letter to really kind of unhinge yourself. But I really think it's also kind of asking yourself some really pointed questions, like, what do I believe versus what I was told to believe?
And I think that I'd love to dig into that, because this is obviously the basis of your book, this belief, the beliefs we have around the stories that we've been told or the stories that we tell ourselves. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really getting clear on, like, for instance, for me, I was raised in a very high control religion. And there came a point in time where I realized I didn't know what I actually believed. I didn't have my own faith. I'd been kind of spoon-fed a prepackaged kind of meal. And I really needed to dig through and say, do I actually believe any of these things? There was a lot of conversation around women being subjective to men, and really this submissive kind of patriarchal belief system. And that didn't really resonate with me. And I was always in trouble. I was always in trouble. My dad was a minister too. So I was like the really frustrating minister's kid who was like, but are we sure? And it took me like a 10-year period of time to really say, like, what do I believe? And is it okay for me to venture out on my own away from what I've been taught? And that's another thing. Like, sometimes we really have to give ourselves permission to actually say, not only do I not believe the things, whether it's religion or culturally, but am I okay with the fact that I might hurt other people if I step into who I truly am and what I truly believe? And so that's a deep one, right? You really have to kind of understand, like, what's the fallout going to be? And am I okay with that? Because I want to live more deeply within the person that I am.
Yeah, I think that that's such a valid assessment for us to be able to look at our own barometer with regard to keeping ourselves honest, in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. And being able to identify what those things are. You're very open about talking about Olivia, your daughter, who I think is like a modern day little Buddha.
She is. Right? She is.
So can you share with the audience just, some of those wisdom nuggets that she has presented to you, but also, has created an open dialogue for us to assess as well, like where we are?
Oh my God. So she's been my greatest teacher. And there's two things specifically that I can think of. There's been so many, but I remember her coming home from school, and she has this very very questioning kind of personality. And she came home from school one day and she was like, Mommy, is it true that a boy hits you when he likes you? Is it true that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? That doesn't seem right. And I love that about her, right? She actually made me start framing all the stuff that we vomit up as like a cliched expression. We're like, oh, he's just doing that because he has a crush on you. Think about the words that you're saying. You're telling a kid that, she should be hurt by boys because that's how he shows he likes you. And, we just say these things. And she really made me start paying attention to more conscious messaging, so that when she would ask me a question, rather than me just vomiting up rote, what my parents said, what my religion said, what, society wants her to believe about herself, I started saying, well, how does it feel in your heart? How does it feel in your stomach? Like, how are you feeling about things? And now she has, from her own kind of questioning mentality, she's created this almost kind of family dynamic where we take a pause whenever we're working through a big question or a belief system. She went to Catholic school, and there was a sign at her school that was dedicated to children that had died from abortion. At 5 years old, she was asking me, Mommy, is it true that it's, these people aren't going to get into heaven? Is it true this? And I said, tell me what you feel in your heart. And she goes, that doesn't seem right. Okay, well, then that's your belief, right? And then recently, she asked me, my boyfriend and I were having a conversation, and I'm just way more expressive. And she was listening in, and it was just kind of debating something. And later on, she says, Mommy, I noticed that you're very expressive. And my boyfriend, she calls him Lulu. And Lulu's just not as expressive as you. So maybe next time, only tell him one thing that's on your mind so that he can catch up. I was like, oh my God, you are so brilliant. She's like next level. I'm like, wow, my 7-year-old's giving me relationship advice.
Yeah.
Such a wise little one.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's a topic that you discuss, as I said, openly. And I find it so fascinating, the level of awakeness that kids have, that, I hear sayings like we should revert back to being our child self so that we can, release any conditioned negative beliefs that we have, and I think it's different for all children, obviously, depending on how you were raised and how you grew up. But for the most part, like, kids have this natural innocence and connectiveness, like there's so much more open and perceptive. And I feel like we don't give kids the credit that they deserve. You know what I mean? Because we're so quick to disregard them. It's like, oh, you're a kid, you don't know.
I think they know more than us so many times, because it's such a pure vision. She doesn't understand. She doesn't understand when people refer to people by their cultural or by their skin color. That does not make sense to her. She's never known a time when her best friend's dads couldn't be married. And so they see the world from a very loving, beautiful place. And it's one of the things I get frustrated about with other parents, when they look at kids as kind of being these blobs, and they're just like, oh, well, it's my responsibility to grow them. But they better not speak back to me. They have to do what I say, and they need to be quiet. I'm like, that's a whole person right there that has their own thoughts, opinions, and beliefs. And you have the luxury and the divine assignment of being their concierge, right? You're basically their guide in this life. And I have learned so much from her, just from allowing her the space to kind of have her viewpoint and have conversation. And I wish more people could get back to that childlike place before people told us, what we should think about each other and ourselves, where they're just so incredibly pure.
Another question that I wanted to ask you about, I work with a lot of people, and I have a lot of students, and, I teach yoga and meditation, and often I use these tools, as many people do, as a way to reframe patterning in our mind, right? It's like you do something over a long period of time. And I'd like to hear what your view is on us being able to tell new stories, better stories that can replace maybe those old negative thoughts or belief patterns. Like, what kind of advice could you give to the people listening that maybe have that old track playing in their mind that they're trying to replace with something better?
I think it's such a beautiful question, and I think it's so possible. And I think people who have old stories that they're trying to unwind, or old ways of relating, sometimes you have to get so radically honest with yourself and realize sometimes in your pain, you are the common denominator. And you have to commit to a new way of living and paying attention and kind of say, have I been stuck in a passive choice orientation where I'm kind of allowing these old stories to play out, old pain, old triggers, and not being aware of them? Am I seeing the same relationship patterns over and over again? At some point in time, you have to kind of say, these are on me. It is on me to unhook myself from whatever that belief is. And sometimes the work is dirty, right? And I really believe you have to see it first, and you have to kind of own up to it and hold your own garbage and kind of say, okay, this is me, this is my shadow, and this is my light, and here is where I put myself, and what do I need to do to move to an active choice orientation where every day I'm moving a little bit further to that beautiful, best, baddest version of myself. And paying attention. Like, I have a thing right now where I will check in with myself when I don't feel like I'm at my most aligned high vibe state. If I'm starting to feel sadness, if I'm starting to feel, especially if I start to feel anger or frustration, because I don't feel that those are natural kind of states that I want to live in. And so I'll kind of poke at them a little bit and be like, okay, what are you? Who are you? Who is this? Is this an old story that is coming to light? Have I been triggered in my new relationship? Let me explore that and say it out loud. And sometimes I feel like if you can name the feeling, name the trigger, and actually have dialogue, especially if you're engaged in a relationship and it's through the relationship, or see it honestly and hold it within your grasp and say, this is the thing. And then make active steps to move through it, not past it, because I feel like you have to feel it out. You have to understand it. I've now gotten to a place where I recognize my shadow side is that I can become passive aggressive or move into martyrdom. And it's very rare that someone's going to tell you, hey, this is my shadow side. This is bad behavior that I partake in as ways to express myself. But because I can name it, I can also time it. So once I start to feel triggered and act poorly or out of that high vibe aligned place that I want to be in, I'm like, okay, that took me about 20 minutes to realize I just went back into an old way of relating and I need to get my head out of it. That also means sometimes that as you're starting to move towards that more conscious way of living and repatterning your life, you're also looking at the people that you call in around you and making sure that they are aligned and moving in the same direction with you. Because if you're hanging out with people that keep you stuck or telling the same old stories or sharing the same old viewpoints about yourself, it's going to be much harder for you to pop yourself out of those situations.
Yes. Oh, please. Can we talk about removing toxic people out of our lives?
Sure.
So, right? Because I think this is such a huge thing that I seem to encounter in my life. Not that I have tons of toxic people, but I feel like it's possible for people that weren't toxic at one point to become toxic, right? Mm-hmm. And in two instances, there's been two people that I thought were toxic that in reality it was me who was toxic.
Yep.
And those relationships also transformed. So can you speak to, our ability, number one, to identify when a relationship is toxic, and number two, what do we do to move past that?
Absolutely. I trust myself. So I call it the gut check method, where I start to pay attention to the way my body, or my gut, my heart, wherever you call your intuition or knowingness, kind of like is like, hey, this doesn't feel right, and we ignore that so much because, oh, we've known them for a long time, or they're going through a hard time and I'm just being here for them, or whatever it is. But if they text you and you're like, or you're talking to them and you feel your arms start to cross in front of you, or your shoulders start to come in, or you have to change the way you behave in order to feel loved and accepted by them. I have one friend, I've been friends with her for such a long time, and I love her dearly. But when I'm at my happiest, highest vibration and I'm spewing out light and love and I'm proud and I'm excited, she is not happy for me. I have noticed that I have to almost complain about my body or my relationship, and she leans in and, girl, let's talk. What do you want? It's almost like you have to start paying attention to where people meet you and say, you meet me in the place when I'm bad, and you're not lifting me out of it. You're commiserating with me, right? So I'm now choosing the girlfriends who are like, okay, tell me what's going on. How do we fix this? What do you need from me, right? And I think you really have to get clear as to like what your body tells you and what your soul tells you when you're interacting with these people. Are you in the place of alignment when you're in that space? And yeah, sometimes it is like, I think it's so like amazing that you recognize like, hey, I was the one that was toxic in those relationships, because sometimes it's us. Sometimes they're going about their day. I have a wonderful friend who I love dearly who told me, she actually kind of handed me my butt and was like, hey, I'm really happy about things that are happening in my life, and you are not happy for me. You need to be happy for me.
Oh.
And I was like, thank you. Because I was like, that kind of moment, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm so sad. And I said about my stuff. Like, right. I'm like, girl, go get your life, get your man, get your new job. I'm thrilled for you. But what you're seeing is my sadness because you're just on this trajectory, and I was in a kind of a stuck place. And I said, you just called me out on it, and I am sorry. And I'm so happy for you, but you weren't. She's like, I can't tell. I'm like, well, I'm sad for me. And she's like, get over yourself. And I was like, thank you. And right. I mean, that's a good friend, right? Yeah, who's like, yes. You got to get here, sister. And I was like, thank you. I need to work on myself. And I think that's another thing too, is like, you have to work on yourself every day. You're never finished. You're never done. You just get to a place where you have better tools, and you handle situations in a much stronger and from a much better foundation. But self-development and being the better version of you is a daily practice.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you, I'm like, that's the great lead into the next question, right? It's like, how do we create a mindful daily practice to assess ourselves in that capacity?
Yeah, I truly believe that there's a mind, body, soul connection. You can't have one without the other. You have to feed yourself on a daily basis in all areas of your life. You can't have like a super great career and be eating incredibly unhealthy so that your health is failing. Something's going to give at some point in time. So you have to kind of lift all boats when it comes to you. I think of your body as being almost like your temple that holds all of this goodness within your mind, your heart, your soul. And you have to feed that temple. You have to treat that temple with such respect in order for everything within to also be lifted and to be healthy and do well. So I believe that a daily practice includes mindfulness and meditation. You really have to get quiet with yourself. And that helps, especially I have anxiety. So that helps me with anxiety. I haven't had a panic attack since I started practicing meditation. I have a deep love for yoga. I wish I did more yoga. Like I want to do it every day. There's something about moving your body that allows you not only, physically to remove toxins and to kind of move all that lactic acid and all that stuff out of you. But I've never left my mat without having answers.
Oh, that's not just good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's when I've got my mind's all frazzled and befuddled. That's where I go. I hit my mat, and it's almost like a prayer when I'm on my mat. But I think it also involves, eating in healthful ways, making sure that you're putting things in your body, and so that not only are you feeling better, but your temple gets you through life, better health, longevity, and all of those things. So it's really about creating a healthy practice. And I know for a lot of people that doesn't seem attainable, or it seems like a lot of work, or you're like, I got to get to work, I got to do that, I got to do this. Once I started creating mindful practices throughout my day, I wanted to get up earlier because I saw how I greeted the day with such intention that I was calmer and kinder with my daughter as I was getting her to school. I wasn't like, get your shoes. Why haven't you eaten your breakfast?
We got to go.
Exactly. Chop, 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 sister. Let's go. Now I can greet her. I've already meditated. I've stretched my body a little bit. I've had my cup of tea. I've journaled. All of these things have taken me maybe 30 minutes. So by the time I've greeted her, I am in a much better place. And then I make sure that there's, some type of fitness activity somewhere in my day, at least 5 days a week. And I have to eat healthy because the other alternative has just made me feel groggy and miserable. So I think it's just about thinking of your body as being so incredibly just a special place, and everything within has to be aligned and in tune.
Oh, I love that. When do you feel like you are your best self?
When I'm very connected to my spiritual practice. Oddly enough, it's when I'm not traveling. When I'm traveling, I completely get off course, even on vacations. I've noticed that when I feel I'm at my best self, I have had an intentional day where everything that has been put on my calendar is for the purpose of moving my life, my career, my relationships forward. That's when I'm at my best self, when I'm creating from a place of intention.
I love that. I love how you create this container around being able to shift all of these patterns in a sustainable way, right? Especially, in the book you talk about all these different tools that we can do, and ways to identify what those fables are, the stories that we tell ourselves. And I think that part of just being women in this day and age, right? We're seeing so much of this uprising of women speaking their truth and stepping into their full potential and a deeper sense of empowerment, which I think is amazing. And I'm excited that Olivia is growing up in this wave of wokeness, right?
I love it.
And I think it's amazing, but for us, we're essentially we're raised in the same generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's all still very new, right? This whole wave of female empowerment and acknowledgement, things that we've been fighting for over like 100 years, it's now beginning to be more showcased and recognized. What is your prayer for the next generation of women that are growing up in this age?
Yeah, this is where I get super nerdy. I actually, there's data that comes out of Harvard, Kinsey, all of these higher ed, all of this, all these studies have been done on girls and women and their impact on the global society, and how we need more women and girls in powerful roles, decision-making roles, places of leadership, because of the way we think. Not that we think better, we think differently, right? So the corpus callosum in the woman is larger in our brains than the man. The man, he thinks in a linear, have to get things done. A woman has the ability to go back and forth between left and right brain and to take into account life experiences, the community, examples, and they eventually we're great decision makers together, men and women, when we come to the table. And it's better for the economy, it's better for the bottom line, companies are healthier. My greatest hope is that more girls are empowered and have examples to move into decision-making roles with all of that power and all of that intelligence and all of that brain. And we see a global transformation socially, economically, globally, because more girls are stepping into positions and are in decision-making roles. And I see it happening. And my focus with my company and the things that I'm doing is that it's a pay it forward. We want more girls to have access to STEM programming. We need more girls at the table making decisions, not because they're better than boys, but together, you bring the feminine and the masculine together, we can do amazing things.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's about cultivating a stronger sense of union and community between both women and men, our counterparts, because we need both, right? We need the balance. Yep. What is it that you're working on now that you're most passionate about?
I am so my company now, I'm building a wellness brand, a wellness company, and we are developing an app, a mind, body, soul experience. And it is so much fun.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. And the idea is that we're going to build a community of like-minded people, and there will be annual live events. And it's really bringing people together who want to not only create healthier selves, but know that in the creation of healthier selves, we are creating healthier children. I'm talking to the moms who are raising kids who are going to make the decisions for the next gen.
Oh, I love that. I'm so excited. Thank goodness. Like I see, hearing you speak to that and knowing the type of work that you're doing out in the world makes me really hopeful and excited, because I'm also the realist in my side of the family, as spiritually connected as I'm doing air quotes feel. I definitely I can get to this place where I get totally taken down by what's happening in the world, media, social media. And I'm just like, what is happening in the world? Like, we need to come together and create a more kind, mindful, present world, where people are more excited about the things that are going right as opposed to the things that are going wrong.
Yeah. No, I think I am more hopeful than I've ever been before. Not only because, I mean, we have all of these movements and I see, I came from corporate America. I was in finance for 20 something years before, I wrote on planes to take my book out there. And so I know the patriarchy very well. The patriarchy and I have been, we've been in each other's lives for a long time.
Yeah.
I see the lash back. But I am seeing more people move into positions of power, more women who are stepping into making roles. And I am so hopeful. Like, I see the bad. I absolutely see the bad. And there are times where I have to turn off my news feed. I have to make sure that I'm feeding my mind with conscious goodness so that I can remember how many people are doing such great work in the world. I'm very aware of it. But I also know that the next generation is unlike any generation before them. So if we provide them with the right life guides and concierge
service,
mentors as opposed to parenting, I feel like it's a game changer for them.
Yeah, I love that. What has been the biggest lesson that Olivia has taught you?
I don't know that there's just one. She's helped me tap back into my feminine. I had masculinized myself in corporate America, and becoming the mother to a little girl who may enter the same offices and workspaces that I was, it turned it into advocacy, right? It helped me walk back more into that feminine side of myself and this lioness kind of like, I'm like, this isn't for me. It's funny because before you have kids, you might have like this righteous cause.
Sure.
You might have something that you believe in, but if you're upset about something, you have a tendency to kind of be like, well, when it's for your children, you're like, I will rip out a heart. Like, we're going to do this. So I just think it's funny. I think she kind of helped me step into that really strong feminine power, where it was like, I now have a reason that I have to do this.
Yeah. What is your biggest prayer for her?
My biggest prayer for her is that she stays who she is. She already knows that she's smart and powerful and strong. I feel like she's got this wise old soul, like you said. She's like a Buddha. I hope that as life comes at her, she remains in that strength, and she remains this just version of, there's this purity to her that I know over time there will be innocence lost. It happens with all of us. But I just hope that she always stays kind of rooted in this person that I see.
I love that. What is your definition of freedom?
My definition of freedom, that's such a great question. Because like in the world that I came from, you think of freedom as being financial freedom or what have you. I think freedom for me is the ability to create without excuse. To me, that has been a really beautiful thing that I've walked into after leaving corporate America, is not having to explain myself to anyone and to have the freedom to create beautiful content, beautiful words, and a life that I aspired to without having to explain myself to anybody.
I'm like, that's so good. I have so many other questions, but I'm trying to be concise. Wow. I mean, you've already said so much, and I'm curious, and I ask these next couple of questions to all of my guests, but I'm curious to hear your response, and if you could elaborate a little bit more. I normally just ask guests to answer the question, but I really would love to hear you elaborate. So, what advice would you give to your 15-year-old self?
I would tell her, girl, you've got this. She was unconventionally confident when she shouldn't have been. she was curious and wanted more, but didn't have the support system in place. And I think she continued to walk forward on wobbly legs, not knowing what the hell was going to happen. And I think I just gave her kind of like a little nudge and be like, you got this, you're good, don't worry. Like, you're gonna do amazing things because you're willing to walk on the wobbly legs.
Nice. I love that. What advice would your 95-year-old self tell you now?
Get going, sister.
Oh, and she's probably like retired somewhere amazing with like the success of the app and just like hanging out.
She's like in the Mediterranean with no, she just is like you. I think of my future self quite a bit. I've never thought of her at 95. I've always thought of, the deathbed me was like, hey sister, you better get it together because I'm not leaving this world without being like, I got this. I did my thing. Right. And being like we're good. And I think at this point I'm like, I feel like she's kind of like, okay, no more excuses, let's go. Like, right. You know what you're up for.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think just reading about you and your book and all the beautiful content that you're putting out in the world, as I said earlier, like, I think it's so important and it's extremely inspiring, and I just really love when women create a supportive container for other women to really shine their light and to step into their power. And even though we're in a world where it seems like a lot of people are doing it, I don't think that a lot of people are doing it from a place of integrity and are doing it from a place of wholehearted love, which I think you are. And I think that has a lot to do with your background, your ability to just have that level of authenticity and integrity. So I want to acknowledge that, and I want to thank you for that.
Wow, that just got me. Thank you. Thank you. I wrote in my book, like, I felt like if I didn't do this, I would die in the spiritual sense, right?
Right.
Like, I have to. This is my advocacy. It's my pure love. And so thank you for mirroring that back, because sometimes you do this and you don't feel as seen, right? Your reasoning behind it and your passion. So thank you for seeing me. That felt really powerful.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad. Well, I have two more questions left, and sure. Just staying on this note, is there any words of wisdom that you would like to share with the men and women out there who are on the same journey and might be feeling unseen or stuck? What can you tell them?
I would tell them that the one thing that's been so powerful for me is you can have the life that you want, the love that you want, but you have to do the work. You have to dig in and you have to commit to yourself that some days it's going to be hard and some days you will not be seen. But you will start to slowly unravel this beautiful way of living with an entire toolbox you didn't know existed, and a support system that will show up and will guide you when you need it and smack you when you need it more. And I think that's what I would just say. It's like, lean into that scary stuff that you're about to embark on, because the other side of it is so blissful. And it doesn't mean things stop being hard or you have bad situations or you will experience loss, but your toolbox and your soul relationships will be so much more rich.
Thank you for that. I have one final question, and it's pertaining to this particular podcast and why I created this space. It was coming from a place of wanting more union, more community, and it's from this idea that we are radically loved by God, Source, Universe, whatever higher power of your understanding, Baby Buddha, Krishna, whatever it is. The universe works for us and not against us. And so the final question to you is, how do you feel radically loved?
I had a spiritual experience on my yoga mat. And that was the moment that I realized that there was something bigger than me. I struggled with my faith for my entire life. my entire life. I had no idea what I believed. And I was very lost. And I would go to churches because I thought Catholicism was really beautiful. And I would be so jealous of the people praying and all of the rosaries and the supplication. And I would have my other friends were in other religions. And I was so jealous of what they had that I could not even wrap my head around. And I was in a very tough season of my life. And I had laid my mat out on the floor, and we were in Savasana, and we were like doing this kind of meditation. And all of this sudden, I felt like there was something there with me. And I asked the question, what do I need to know? And I got back, you are loved. And I just had tears streaming down my face. And it was such an absolute, resolute, like there was a knowingness that grew within me in that moment that I was loved and supported. And it was the words that I needed to hear, because in my love letter to my younger self, I wrote, you will spend most of your life believing you are unlovable. So the fact that I had my spiritual breaking open with those words were something that I go back to very regularly, knowing that I'm loved and supported in this life.
I love that. Jeanette, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, just for all the work that you're doing in the world and for showing up in an authentic, genuine, and real way. You're an inspiration to men and women everywhere. And I wish that you could be my mom. So if you want to adopt me, like, it's amazing. I love it. So thank you for that. And for the people listening, Jeanette's book is Lore, Harnessing Your Past to Create Your Future. We're going to be giving away 10 copies of the book. And all you need to do is screenshot this particular podcast and tag both Jeanette and I in your Instagram stories, or you can post it on Instagram and you will enter to win a copy of the book automatically. So for the people that want to connect with you, where can they go for more information?
My website is JeanetteSchneider.com, and I also have my Instagram, ms.JeanetteSchneider. I'm on there all the time. Love connecting that way. And a podcast called Gold with Jeanette Schneider on Apple and Spotify.
Yay. Thank you so much, Jeanette. You're the best. I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. I had such a great time talking with you. My heart is full. Thank you.
Powerful You is coming to Los Angeles. Finally, I'm so excited. This 3-day transformative event brings world-renowned influencers, visionaries, and entrepreneurs directly to the LA area. So get ready, LA. And if you're not in LA, you must come. We've got some incredible people speaking, many who have been guests on this podcast. We've got Lisa Bilyeu, Lori Harder, Glennon Doyle, and I get to be speaking at this event, which is still hard for me to believe. I'm so excited. It's May 17th through the 19th. Get your tickets at powerful-u.com, or you can go to the show notes of this podcast and go directly to the link to get your tickets now. This event will sell out, and I really hope that you treat yourself and get an opportunity to come to this amazing event. So I'll see you soon. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I am so excited to continue to do this. Please share this with your friends. Email us, message us on Instagram at Rosie Acosta or on Twitter at Rosie Acosta. Subscribe on iTunes, write a review. We love doing this, so please help us continue to keep this podcast going. Thanks for listening.